Okay, greetings and peace, everyone. My name is Neo, N-E-O, and I'm here to share some info with the people. This lecture series right here, is going to be a little bit different from my previous ones. And speaking of previous ones, if you have not already heard the other ones, then go back whenever you can. This lecture right here, I believe, is my fifth one for my YouTube channel right here. And I'm going to explain this lecture process right here. I recently went through a situation with a female, which was, it was like a mixture of friendship / dating at the same time. And this whole situation, situations like this happens when you're really not allowing yourself to be conscious of what's really going on from the start to the middle and to the end. And with me already having all of the information that I need to be able to start and maintain at least the basics information and a little bit more, I'll say above average, to start and maintain a successful relationship, both friendship and a romantic one. I should have known better with this situation, but I went ahead and I did it the wrong way. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to explain the situation that went on with myself, and then I'm going to use that as my content to build on, to show people both the wrong way to start a situation, a friendship, and then dating situation. And then at the end, hopefully I'll be able to have enough time to show you guys the proper way to do it. Because right now in this time, this day and age, there's so many different ways to meet a person and so many different situations that people are put in that there's not one way to do it, to start a relationship, a friendship, and even the dating process. However, there is a basis, and you got to have a basic foundation and still be able to know what's what. And that's what I'm hoping to do with this lecture. And the most important thing that I want to convey, and I will convey right now before I start, is maturity. And especially if you're on a high level of maturity, it solves a lot of your problems. And you're able to perceive a lot more than the average person, because your consciousness level and your social awareness, your communication, it's above average. And a lot of people in today's society, especially in America, because I'm speaking from my experience living in America, a lot of people have been brought up on TV and they have not recognized the importance of avoiding watching TV and the effects that TV has on their psychological and emotional state, the negative effects, because there's very little to no positive effects of sitting around watching TV unless you raise your consciousness and your maturity level already, and then you start watching TV. But the average person has been influenced to watch TV early on during their development stages and early on in their life, and that is absolutely the wrong time to let someone to watch TV. So this watching TV prevents people from, the average person, I'll say, from reaching a high level of maturity so that they'll be able to deal with their relationships throughout their life. And this is the top reason why very few people have been experiencing successful and long-term relationships without the chaos and being able to deal with it. Because once you get on a high maturity level, you know how to prevent chaos before it even enters the situation, or at least starts for a long period of time. So once you get that maturity, you'll be able to really perceive what I'm talking about. Because once I left my mother's home into my own apartment, that's when my maturity started to increase. And I started to develop myself more and more and more and more and more. This allowed me to perceive all of these relationship insights that I have already received, and also me doing my conscious observation and investigation of these things, of relationships in general, and speaking with people and looking at people's relationships up close and in front, any way that I can, in any angle. And also my intuition. I have a heightened intuition, and as long as I stay calm and relaxed, I'll be able to perceive my intuition in a variety of situations. So with me having my own experiences regarding relationships, and also doing investigation of a variety of other people's relationships, that allowed me to obtain the information that I have now, so that I can then, boom, present it to the public as I'm doing now. So keep that in mind. Maturity is a big, big thing to have, and a must before entering a friendship or even a romantic relationship. And I say relationships in general, because the things that I've been seeing now, and going into different situations with people, I realize the importance of having maturity, because I'm able to control myself, and I see how a lot of people, there's a lot that they don't already know that they should have learned already. And this is people up in their 50s and 60s. I mean, it's some serious stuff that people haven't really perceived yet. So I'm like, okay, I got to go ahead and teach people this. That's why I have my book, my ebook, my Committed Relationships, the Starting Process to the Process ebook. I have my Committed Relationships blog. I have my Committed Relationships informative group on Google+. And I have my lecture series here. So let's get started. Okay, this is a disclaimer. In no way do I mean to disrespect the young woman whom I'm referring to in this explanation. This is my explanation of what to avoid before entering a friendship or romantic relationship with anyone. Okay? So keep that in mind. What I want to say is the reason for me sticking through this situation with this young lady, and she was in her early 20s and very, very young, and I seen that early on. However, what kept me staying within the situation, the amount of time that I did, was I really and seriously and honestly, I saw something special within inside of her. And that probably the average person, if they looked at her from the outside and they just heard her speak and they seen her bipolar disorder, and I believe that she does have bipolar disorder, because there's small things that people can say to her or do to her that might just cause her to just snap, and then boom, she's in a bad mood, and it might take her maybe 15-20 minutes or longer to get over it. And you have to have an extreme amount of patience with the person of this nature if you are serious about having a successful, long-term, fulfilling relationship with the individual. And for me, even though I've seen all of the psychological issues that she had, and she was taking a lot of medication, and she had physical health problems, I still felt like, and also based on her history that she explained to me, I still felt like she can actually utilize someone of my nature to be able to help uplift her and get her out of her current situation, and overall develop her to a higher state of being, to be a better person, a better woman that will be successful in a relationship where she has a lot more to offer. And she told me about the types of things that she wanted in a relationship, and I can see that she had what I call her motherly instincts activated. And I go into that in one of my articles, in my past articles on my Committed Relationships blog, and I'll put that one, hopefully I'll remember it, I'll put that one into my description whenever this gets uploaded to YouTube. But regardless, go back and check that out. The motherly instincts is highly important for a woman to have activated before entering a romantic relationship, if she wants to have her part covered and be able to provide the nurturing and the care for her mate. So go check that article out. This young woman here, she had it activated, and I identified that, and I said, oh, boom, that's the minimum. That's one aspect that a woman must have before I move forward with her. So that's that. That's the reason why I stayed with her throughout all of her disrespectful remarks to me and her anger towards me. And she never hit me, and I never hit her. And I was calm and relaxed throughout the whole time. Well, at least most of it, but I refused to be disrespectful to her because I knew her psychological state and I knew her maturity level. So I knew that the best thing for me to do is just to keep calm, and I remain keeping my remarks balanced and non-judgmental and negative towards her, because if I was to be negative towards her, that would only make things worse. And it would just spiral down, and then she wouldn't want to be around me at all. So these are the type of things that you will be able to perceive once you raise your maturity level. This is for everybody. Once they raise their maturity level, they'll just know what to do in a variety of situations, even if they have never been in a situation before and it's new. They'll still be able to have a great balance to work with in responding to people and overall dealing with them in whatever situation. So let me give you a brief history of me and this young lady. It started a few years back when we used to live on the same side of town, right? And for me, on this side of town, there's a lot of females that are interested in me, and that's non-ego. I'm speaking from an open-hearted situation, and it's me. I've noticed once I worked on my own development level and my psychological level, I've noticed the difference in my energy, because I radiate, and the Spirit told me that I radiate an authoritative, mature energy, and that attracts people to me, especially women, and also it automatically gets people to respect me. As soon as I step into a room, people automatically call me sir, and then some people, they use the respectful term brother. You know how that goes with that situation. So she was one of the females that was interested in me, and I would see her walking up and down a variety of different streets whenever I would walk or sit on the steps outside. And the first or second moment that I seen her, I felt her energy radiate towards me. And that was when I knew, like, okay, she's one that's interested in me. And then every time I see her, I would know that she's one that's interested in me. However, she was one of those type of people that seemed like she always had somewhere to go, and she would be walking so fast. I couldn't really observe her to do recon on her, because I advise people before engaging with the person, especially if you're interested in seeing potential dating mate, that it is important to do recon before engaging. And what I mean by doing recon is observing as much as possible of the individual or group or whatever, so that you can see as much as possible regarding them, as much as possible, before you engage with the person and say, okay, I want to bring this person or this situation or this group into my life, or I want to go ahead and get involved with this person, group, or whatever it is. So once you do that, then you'll have you'll be able to make a wiser decision versus doing what most people do. And I'm speaking about before approaching a person on a potential romantic level. What most people do is they'll look at the person's physical body, the physical aspect of them, And then they'll be that captures their attention, and then they'll just jump in, they'll have a little conversation, then maybe if there's a connection, they'll keep talking, yada, yada, yada. Then they'll somehow just jump into a relationship. And I see this so much over and over again. And this is an example that I'm about to explain to you too of me, how I wasn't conscious at the time and how I just jumped into the situation. But they don't do any recon. And so dealing with her, I didn't get a chance to really do much recon because she would just be walking so fast, I couldn't really observe her, because that's when the intuition would come through and I'll be able to know if that's the type of female that I want, because I already did my self-reflection and self-analysis and self-development early on that allowed me to be above average on a variety of levels. So that allows me, and I did my self-analysis of what type of female that I choose to accept before I choose to go into a relationship with. So I already have the filter, the criteria down. So with her, I wasn't able to do it. So, okay, I left that alone. Didn't see her for maybe 2 or 3 years until I was on a social network app. So I was on the social network app, going through, just browsing through. It was one of those situations where I was bored, and I was going through, and then I saw her picture, and I was like, all right, this one looks cute. And this is when she didn't have her scarf on, because back then when I used to see her, she would have a scarf on all the time. Just like me, I always had my do-rag on, usually. My do-rag for protection overall. So you'll see me have my do-rag on a lot too. The chemtrails and a few other things. But she would have her wrap around her head. But when I looked at her on her profile, the first 2 pictures, I was like, wow. I was like, yo. Because she was extremely, extremely cute. The first 2 pictures that she had on there, she was extremely cute. Then when I moved to the second one, oh my God, yo, she literally looked identical to Alicia Keys. For real. I thought to me, she looked like, in that picture, she looked like a baby, not like a baby, a young Alicia Keys when Alicia was like 23. And I was like, yo, and that was the first thing that grabbed my attention. Then when I went to like the 3rd or 4th picture of hers, when she had her wrap around her head, that's when I remembered, like, oh, this is the same girl that I saw a few years ago. I'm like, oh, I was like, yes, okay, this is her. This is the one that used to like me. So I was like, all right, well, I'm single. She's on this dating site. So let me just go ahead and just say something to her. Say hi to her, talk to her about how I seen her, and let's just see how it goes. And that was the start of the situation. So during this time, it was day 1, and it was at night, and we exchanged messages during that time. We developed a little bit of a rapport. Then the next day came where it was Valentine's Day. So this is here in February. So we continued to talk on Valentine's Day, right? So us both being single, on Valentine's Day, we talked a little bit in the AM in the morning, and then she asked me, what am I doing? Now keep this in mind. She asked me, what am I doing today? What do I have planned for Valentine's Day? And I think I said I was going to go to the library or something. And then I said, I really don't have anything planned. And then she said, how do you feel about coming over and spending time here with me? And right then and there, yo, when you are a man and you get a beautiful woman ask you to come over to her house and she does it, she asks you first, I'm telling you, it's something that's really hard to say no to. It's really hard to say no to, but if you're on a certain level and you just definitely know better, you'll be able to know, like, no, it's not the right thing to do. But again, keep in mind, I was in my ego at that moment, and I really wasn't thinking deeply. I was seriously focused on how beautiful she was, and I was solely focused on her physical aspect. I didn't even get deep enough to be able to perceive her personality. So that was the biggest issue, and I'm going to go back into that hopefully later on when I give you guys the correct way of going about doing these things. But I'm showing you the situation. I'm explaining to you the situation as is and the wrong things to do. So that's that. Or I might even just go through the whole situation and do both sides side by side rather than doing it the correct way later. Going through a correct process later, showing you that. I don't know, it all depends. So I'll see how things go. I'll do my best. So then we exchanged numbers. So I said, yeah, okay, that sounds good. Then I said, would now be a good time to exchange numbers so that we can have each other's information. And she said yes. And then that's when I got her address, and boom, I came over. Now note, the very first thing, and here's another solution. Yes, we exchanged numbers. However, we absolutely failed to have at least one or more phone conversations with each other before meeting each other face to face. That was my biggest mistake of this whole situation. And I admit that, and I realized that once I did my self-analysis of the situation, looking at myself, and I said to myself, oh man, if I would have did that, had at least one or more conversations with her, then I would have been able to perceive through her tone of voice and her explanations of her past and a variety of other things, I would have been able to perceive her true personality rather than what she portrayed to me the first time we met. And that was my mistake. So that's key number one. I want you guys to remember that before you meet a person face to face, whether you be from a social network or you meet them some other way and you get their number, make sure that you have at least one or more phone conversations with the individual, and make sure that you are as conscious as possible and you're listening to the individual, because there will be a lot of clues about them, their mental, the psychological level, and a variety of other things. You just have to tune in, tap in, tune into the situation, and try your best to avoid distractions while you're speaking with the individual. That's why for me, when I speak to a woman on the phone or anybody, I turn off everything that's unnecessary so that I can zone in on them. After these years of studying and investigating human relationships and humans in general, I came to the conclusion and realization that, wait a minute, just about everybody, the moment that you meet them or even observe them from a distance, they literally tell you what level they're on, what maturity level they're on, what psychological and emotional level of development that they are on. It's just that most people, they haven't developed their level of consciousness above average to be able to perceive all of this information that's readily available to them. So that's why on average for me, I avoid approaching women who I might be interested in. I avoid approaching them in public unless I had a good enough time to observe them, to do my recon. Before I engage. And that's usually what I do. I do my recon first as long as possible, before I engage. But for this situation here, I opened up a lot quicker and more due to the previous connection, similar kind of connection where we saw each other face to face already years ago on the same side of town. And I knew that she was interested in me. And the downside of what I did was I saw that she was extremely beautiful. So I opened up without really thinking on a higher level to see if this is the type of woman that I want to put my time and effort into. So that was where I failed. And that's what I convey to you to avoid jumping so soon into situations and jump to conclusions. So do keep that in. Okay, so here we are. I made it to her home. And another thing that opened me up too, this is why it helps being able to recognize your other senses, your higher senses, you guys. I'm telling you, your intuition, your clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, especially clairsentience. For me, my primary ones are clairsentience and intuition. Because the moment I walked into her apartment, that's where I sensed this peaceful, zen-like energy when I walked into her apartment. And I looked around closely, and her apartment was very, very, very clean, spotless. And this was a very, very surprising to me, because she lived in the hood. She lived in the ghetto, in like the project. I'll just keep it real. She lived in the project. So this was a hood chick, and she was mixed. She was white and black. She was mixed. She was mulatto. Some people call her mulatto, and I love mulatto females. And that's another thing that caught me too. That tripped me up and made me fall for her. So that's why I know now. I'm a lot more conscious now to be careful of my obsession with the beauty. That's what That's what I teach everybody is, yes, okay, you can get attracted to a person physically, but you got to also keep in mind that you got to see the other aspects of them before you get involved with them romantically. So that's that. So her place was spotless, and little did I know, there's a reason for her place to be so spotless, but I'll go into that later on. As far as psychological issues. So we sat on the couch, right? So we were sitting on the couch, and we had a very good one-on-one conversation with each other. And she was speaking to me about her past, her situation with her father. She didn't have a very good situation with her father, and I won't go into detail with that because it'll spot her out a little bit too much. But I'll say that she did not have a good situation with her father, and she rarely likes to talk about her father at all. He died, I believe. Her mother doesn't live in the same city, but her mother is one of those mothers that's not good examples for her. So right then and there, when she was mentioning that to me, I knew that, okay, boom, she never had a strong parental guidance system that was a strong psychological and emotional support system. With me doing my years of studying and investigation of human relationships, I know the importance of having a strong parental guidance early on during your development stages, because that helps you raise your level of maturity and psychological and emotional development throughout your development years. And I've noticed throughout my years of observation is that when people lack that support early on, and it could come from anywhere, it could come from your parents, a person's parents, their caretakers, their sister, their brother, their uncles. It could come from a variety of places, but as long as they have that during their development stages, their development stage, that's the minimum. That's the minimum that will allow them to raise up. But if they lack that during their development stage, unless they do their self-reflection, self-analysis, and self-development so that they can raise up just like I did, because I didn't have a strong father figure in my life. I didn't have a strong mother figure in my life. And even though I was raised as Jehovah's Witness, even though in that, my mother, she got some of the elders, some of the brothers to try to be an example for me and to try to bring me under their wing they still wasn't psychologically and emotionally strong themselves. So some way, somehow, the situation ended up getting broken up, and then boom, I'm right back by myself, figuring this. So for me, in my situation, once I realized that there literally wasn't going to be anybody who was going to help me in my life to teach me life and to raise me up and to mature, I literally said, all right, well, I'm going to do this myself. I actually said that at 16. No, I didn't say it, but the Spirit came through and told me that this was when it told me that my higher self and my guides, when they told me that my father wasn't coming back into my life at all anymore, that's when they said, okay, this is the time where you avoid crying, you don't cry, you have to learn to be a man yourself and get through the situation yourself and stand up and do what you have to do. Then that was the moment where I said, okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and learn how to be a man myself. And this was at 16. And I went through all of the situations that I went through, ups and downs and all of that stuff, figuring it out. And then when Spirit came through when I was about 23 and said, all right, look, if you want to have your music career and you want your peace and freedom, you have to get out your mother house and you got to move into your own apartment and learn that way. And that's what I did. So that's how I happened to get through my situation. But back to her. She didn't have that. So I realized that she didn't have that. So I said to myself, and realizing that she didn't do any kind of development work herself throughout that time, which most young females, when they leave early on leave their home, their parents' home at 16, and this happens a lot, and all of my sisters left at 16 or sometime in their teenage years. They left early, and that's that TV. I'm telling you, it's the TV that's fucking with their mind, and the mass media outlets that's influencing them to live adult lives before they are psychologically and emotionally prepared. So what they do is they never had any strong guidance early on in their development stage, and then they get this mindset that, oh, I'm independent, I can do my own thing. Or if they don't leave because of that, because they want to go out and do their own thing, they'll get involved with a male. If they're not pregnant, they'll just get involved with a male, and they want to be alone with him more often. In some way, somehow, they want to move out. So there's so many different situations, but overall at 16, between 16 and 18, that's when a lot of females want to leave early. And for me, this is firsthand experience and observation for me. From my sisters, I had 3 sisters, and they all did the same thing, the same pattern. Remember, I said that every family has patterns, and it's important for you to observe these patterns and analyze them to see what's really going on. That's what the Spirit taught me early on at 16 for me. So for me, seeing all of this, I'm like, oh shit. So the Spirit told me, you have to develop your brain and your mind first before you move out of your mother's house. To a minimum level, above average before you step out. So that's exactly what I did, and that's the reason why I was living with my mother up until the age of 23. Then I moved out because I had a great foundation for myself. This is what I recommend to all of you young people, to do that first. You have to develop yourself while you're living with your mother, your caretakers, or whoever it is, before you move out on your own. Because me doing that allowed me to always be living on my own in my own place. What happened with 3 of my sisters, they all at some point moved back to my mother's house. That again showed me the importance of developing yourself early on during your early ages. So keep that in mind. Me seeing that with her and hearing her explain it, I can see that she was hurt. And it's a lot of things that she really explained to me, and I can see that she still had hurt inside of her. And that's what happens with a lot of people. They don't recover from their hurt. And you gotta, whenever you go, all right, here's a jewel right here. From my experiences and my analysis and investigation of the mind and also of relationships and development. Whenever you go through a traumatic experience that's traumatic to you as an individual, or whatever experience that you consider bad, that is the moment, as quickly as possible, for you to stop, calm yourself down, and you have to utilize as much time as you need to calm yourself down so that you'll be able to do your self-reflection and self-analysis of the situation. It is highly important for you to reflect and analyze the situation from start to all the way to the moment that you got hurt. And you have to do it by first releasing your self-denial. Self-denial only creates a blockage over you that prevents you from being able to perceive the larger picture of things that occurred in your life. Once you release the self-denial and you realize, like, okay, well, I want to learn from this experience so that I can grow, then it will be much easier for you to do self-reflection and self-analysis of the situation and be able to observe what you did wrong in the situation and what you did right in the situation. And then you'll be able to perceive what decisions that you should have made and that you didn't make. Keep that in mind. But let me let you know what the average person does. What the average person does is whenever something happens to them, whether it be tragic or overall that they didn't like, where something didn't turn out the way that they wanted to turn out, especially regarding relationships, what they will do is every so often they might admit one or two things, maybe three things that they didn't do correctly, but then they'll just be like, oh yeah, I didn't do that. Oh yeah, I didn't do this and this. But then they just let that go. They don't do any further analysis of why they didn't do what they should have done and what they should have done. So they just skip over it. And then on average, the average person does is they'll do an immense analysis of what the other person didn't do in the situation and what they did wrong in the situation. They'll just do all of this analysis and it just keeps building up. And then the whole situation of them let me take my time, relax. This is something I really got to convey. All of that time that they're spending analyzing the other person, what they did wrong, that prevents them from doing self-analysis so that they can develop themselves. So then they'll find stupid excuses to move on, and then they'll just say, okay, next time I'm not gonna do this and choose this person who does this. And then they just use that as a criteria to move to the next situation without really looking at the whole situation. So this is where self-reflection, self-analysis, and self-development comes through. So back to the tragic situation. So once you have a tragic situation that happens, or something a failure, I'll just say a failure overall, that's when you got to do your self-reflection, self-analysis, and self-development. You got to look and see what the fuck you did wrong and what the fuck you did and didn't do, and then the best course of actions that would have worked, that you feel would have worked. And then once you do that, you realize, like, oh, okay, well, I learned from that situation. Now I know what to do next time around, and I know what to avoid because I'm a lot more conscious now of situations like that, so I can move on. And the number one way that you can tell if you moved on or not is whenever you're in a situation that is similar or even something that reminds you of your previous situation. Observe how emotionally charged you become or not. Because whenever a person is emotionally charged in a situation, that is a clear indication that they have not recovered from a past situation. And this is where psychological issues get developed, because there was some point where a person did not fully recover from a previous experience, and that experience, that memory is still in there, and a variety of things, it triggers them. So it creates insecurity. So that's why when certain things happen, a lot of person might just snap at you. It's like, "What you say?" Blah, 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 blah. And then they'll just go crazy, or something else will happen, and then they'll just detach from you. So that's what you got to do. You got to get the situation right at hand as quickly as possible, and you got to face it. You have to face it and you have to be resilient and say, look, I'm going to learn from this situation, and I'm going to avoid allowing it to overtake me so that I can be able to rise up from this situation. That's what you got to do. And that's what she didn't do throughout her past experiences, and especially past experiences with her ex-boyfriends. And then with her not doing her development, she just kept going from relationship to relationship. And the bottom line pattern that I've noticed in her situation when she was explaining to me her 4 past relationships is that the underlining thing is that she was looking for a father figure, a mother figure also that will still be there to teach her how to be a woman. But overall, she had a missing father figure link that was in there. And this is what happens with a lot of women, and it happens with a lot of men who didn't have a strong mother figure. So he continues to look for a female. And that was the case with me when I had broke up years ago. That got me on the path to this relationship studying. Once I became conscious of that, then that's when I started to develop myself. I was like, all right, time to go ahead, focus, and develop myself to be a mature adult. So that was her bottom line missing link. And that was the reason why she kept going to relationship to relationship, man after man. And she was telling me about how every one of her relationships was a long-term relationship. Let me get this across too. She said this to me, that every one of her relationships was a long-term relationship, and she never had a short-term relationship. The last time she mentioned that to me, intuitively and from her tone of voice and that energy that she released when she said that, I knew then and there that she thought that because she had a few experiences, 4 experiences of long-term relationships, that she was in the know-how of relationships, and that she was mature. Let me tell you this. This is often a a misconstrued belief that because you have long-term relationship experience, that you are a mature person and you know what you're doing. You're doing wrong. Having relationship experience, personal experience, helps majorly. That's what you have to have first. You have to go through the experiences first. However, what matters most important is you do your self-reflection, self-analysis, and self-development of those situations, and you learn from them after you have gotten rid of your self-denial. But a lot of people, as I said before, they stay stuck on their self-denial. They keep it, and then they don't really fully recover and learn from their past experiences. So I don't give a fuck about how many relationships you've been in. If you didn't learn from your mistakes and you failed to take on accountability and responsibility as a mature adult so that you can keep raising yourself up psychologically and emotionally, and if a person never fully recovered from each of these experiences, then all of those relationships experiences is pretty much fodder. Just fodder. It's just like experiences, and that's it. If you don't utilize those experiences as content for you to grow then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So whenever you hear people say that, oh, I have relationship experiences, so I know what I'm talking about. But if they haven't really did their own observation and close investigation of their own, their self and their past relationships, and also further external relationships, then they really don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And I've noticed this with a lot of people on YouTube and a variety of other places who give relationship advice. Like with me doing the work, intuitively, I know who knows what the fuck they're talking about and who doesn't. And a lot of people don't know what they're talking about, especially if they still watch TV and they still get involved with a lot of mass media outlets and they haven't developed themselves to a high, above average psychological and emotional level. And if they still believe that they only have 5 senses and they're too scared to even talk about their extra senses, that's when you know when their minds are still stuck into the matrix, and whatever information that you get from them involving relationships is usually going to be on a mundane matrix information level. Matrix meaning this system that we're living in, and it's not going to be outside of that. When you listen to a lot of my information, you'll see that my information is outside. It's both inside and outside of the matrix information, because I got to keep some information in the matrix from the matrix. I mean, that's a part of the matrix, so that the average person can comprehend me and know where I'm going, so I can stay on their level. But at the same time, I do my best to not go over people's heads, because I can say some serious shit that the average person be like, what the fuck did he just say? So that's why I kept my book on a basic level, and when you read it, you'll see it. You'll be able to get it, hopefully, the first time around, because that's why I avoided using big words and big metaphysical terminology and stuff like that, so that people can get it. All right, back to her. So that's the information that I want you guys to. So for me, doing my self-reflection and self-analysis of this overall situation with this young woman, I realized that conversation that we had, that first conversation on her couch, it gave me all of the signs that I needed to know if this was the type of female that I wanted to that I needed to get involved with or not. And if I was really, really conscious and I avoided allowing my ego to cloud my judgment, because she was so cute, and she is cute. I'm telling you, like I said, she reminds me of a young Alicia Keys. And if you're like me, who really like Alicia Keys, then you'll see how it's kind of hard to say no. You will see. And a lot of you dudes know what I'm talking about. How when you get in those situations, you're like, damn, she is so sexy. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So, with her past experience, she was telling me about her last boyfriend. He didn't treat her right, and she didn't get return on her investment, where she was really there for her ex-boyfriend, and she wanted a closeness with him, but he had his job, and she had her situation where she had school, and she was focused. So she was focused while she was with him, but at some point he got her to get out of school so that they can be together. But once they like closer and be together more often, she literally dropped out of school so she can spend more time with him. And that was the wrong thing to do. But that's just me and my situation with comprehension of a variety of things. So she cut her ambitions down so that she can be with him, and then he ended up picking up more hours or something like that. So he was out away from her more often, and it was just a big, huge mess. So overall, it ended where she said that he told her that he wanted to see other people, and that she said other people, but hopefully he means just separate. Overall, that's what he was trying to say. I feel like based on her psychological issues, he probably couldn't deal with the situation, because the shit that I saw and been through, I was walking home one day and from her house, and I was like, yo, if I was not on the level that I'm on psychologically and emotionally, I would have been fucked up from that situation and been pissed. And if I didn't know how to control my ego and to ask the spirit to help keep me controlled, oh my God, I would have been fucked up. And I'm like, yo, so this is how a lot of people, this is how they get fucked up from situations in relationships with people who have psychological issues. So, and then they don't recover. Because she told me that before she met her ex-boyfriend, she was normal. But then when she met him and went through those years of arguing and all of that stuff, that created anxiety within inside of her, and then the psychological issue just got worse and worse. And that again, it goes all the way back where she didn't have that strong development, encouragement from somebody within her life, and she had that missing link, that missing father link. So she was looking for a father. She got with the wrong guy, and that guy gave her some sort of affection that she needed and was missing from early on. And then she just didn't do an analysis of if this person is the right person for me. And then she got involved with the wrong person. So that was that. That's what I say to you. Do your self-reflection, self-analysis, self-development so that you can protect yourself and you can observe who's right for you and who's not. Throughout the time that we were speaking, she told me that she realized that once she broke up with him, that's when she realized that the anxiety left and she felt a lot better. So her energy increased and she felt a lot better. So I'm like, oh, okay. So she really realizes that he wasn't the right one for her. And she said it at that moment. And this is a 2 month, this is 2 months after they broke up. So she'd been on her own. She'd been single for 2 months. And again, 2 months on average for the average person, I'm telling you, based on my investigation of all of this, of human relationships, 2 months for the average person who does not do their self-reflection, self-analysis, self-development, and fully recovers from their previous experience. 2 months is highly not enough for them to recover. That's not enough. They got to go at least 3 months or longer. And they need the development, and they need to recover from their past experiences. So I didn't really realize that. Well, I wasn't conscious of it until after I said, okay, this is it. I'm done pursuing her, but that's later. Okay, let me see here. I really want to jump to the conclusion. So we had an experience at her neighbor's house where she wanted me to go with her to her neighbor's house. Throughout that experience, I've observed how her neighbor was undeveloped and was highly immature, and her social awareness was extremely low. So she just bombarded this young female that I was dealing with. She done bombarded her in so many ways without asking permission to do certain things. And her neighbor was just an energy vampire. She just sucked and took advantage of this young lady, and it's so sad. And then the young lady, overall, after that experience, I realized she had an extremely low level of confidence. That's, again, her self-development. She didn't do it. So she didn't have the confidence to step up to a person and say no and protect herself and decide on where she wanted to go. That was the first experience where I recognized it. So up until this point, that was my observation of me to see what level that she was on psychologically and emotionally. And that was the moment right then and there when we left her neighbor's house and got back to her apartment. That was what I call a MOD, moment of disturbance. A moment of disturbance is when a person goes through an experience that disturbs them even slightly or even to a high level. That's when you can identify the true maturity level. That's when you can see their true self rather than the projection that they project in front of you. Because a mature person, when they go through a MOD, a moment of disturbance, they know how to quickly balance themselves and then get back to normal and be able to move on with their day. But this young lady, after this experience, what she did was she allowed that experience to fuck up the rest of her day instead of the rest of her day. And then when we got back upstairs, we were sitting down talking to each other for a little bit, and she was explaining to me how her ex-boyfriend was in the hallway, texted her and told her that he's in the hallway, so she had to deal with that. Then there I think she wanted to buy something off of somebody that was at her neighbor's house, but her neighbor didn't. She asked her neighbor for $10, which I feel like she had the right to ask, because she's always her neighbor's always asking for things from her, and she comes through to help out her neighbor, but her neighbor was acting stingy, so she got angry at that. Then that's when she said she wanted to be alone, and then she wanted me to get out. And I was like, damn. So she allowed all of this to get her angry, and she can't get over it, so that her and I can spend some alone time with each other. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to respect your wishes. So I got up and I left and I walked home. That was a moment where it made me realize that she wasn't able to get over situations easily. And there were more situations after that. That wasn't only it. There was more after that. So let me go to what happened next. So 2 days later, I was heading out the door, right? She gave me a call for the first time. The first time that she called me. This is the Friday after Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day was on Sunday. So I was shocked. I'm like, oh, shoot, she called me. And then she was in a good mood, and she wanted me to come over. She was like, well, you can come over. You can come over today. I'm gonna take a nap for about 2 hours, and then I'll let you know when to come over. So I was like, oh, shit, she called me over. She actually wants me over. So that was an indication like she's interested in me, and she want to continue on. So then I came over. We had a great experience. And then I left on a great note, and I gave her a hug because I knew that she wanted that affection, and she needed that affection. And she even told me that when we was laying on the couch and we with each other watching YouTube, and I did it because I love giving women and children affection because I know that they need it. So I gave it to her, and we left on a great note. And she was like, text me when you get home. And she was happy as fuck. And I was happy too, because I made her happy. So I was walking home, and I was like, yeah, good. All right, everything's good. So then after that, that's when shit started to go downhill. So this is where her psychological issues came to fruition. And Saturday came, I wanted to come over. It was miscommunication. She really didn't convey to me what she was seeking to do that day. She told me that I'd come over, but then she made some goddamn excuse. And what she would do is she'll ask me, where am I? Give me 5 minutes to reply. And then she'll be like, yo, you taking too long. And then she'll just move on with her day. And then she get angry. That's how she is. She has low patience. So after that, shit just didn't feel right. And then I came by, I think it was Monday. That's when I realized, like, all right, something's not right with her. She got a lot of psychological issues, and that's when it all came out onto the table. That day right there was when it all came out on the table. When I did my reflection of the situation and analysis, I realized that there was already signs right there to say, look, this is not the one to get romantically involved with at all. If you're going to still be with her, then take your time with her. And that's what I should have did. And I was a little bit too aggressive, and I got too attached to her because I was loving giving that affection to her, because I didn't receive it when in my early years. And I've noticed doing my analysis too is two things that happen usually when a person doesn't receive the affection and close connection with their parents or anybody early on that they need. They'll either, number one, they'll shut down and prevent other people from giving it to them, and they get into like this shell. Or number two, they love giving it. They just openly giving it, or they'll be like me. I love giving it and I love receiving it. And I'm just completely open to it. And I just have like all of this love built inside of me. And this is all after I released my self-denial years ago and realized like I wanted to grow. So I got all of this love inside of me and affection. And once I found somebody to give it to, that's another thing that locked me into the situation. And I completely put everything else to the side without really analyzing it. But it was just that one, that night, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, earlier this week, dealing with her. I see how down and out she was. Something happened to her earlier that day, probably something that she didn't like. It was another MOD, a moment of disturbance. And then also she dropped her phone in the puddle, so that fucked her up too, because earlier that day we were supposed to go to the mall. She didn't reply back to me. So the whole day I'm sitting here waiting, expecting a text return reply from her. So I was like, okay, well, let me go ahead and do something else. So I didn't end up getting a reply back till like 9-10 o'clock later on that night. She asked me to come over, and I was asking her to call me, because that whole time from that Friday till then, later on, I didn't receive a call back from her. I kept calling her, but I would always receive texts. She was always catching up with me through text. So I'm like, damn, something's going on. She don't like to talk on the phone. That's another sign of immaturity and a psychological issue based on my analysis. So I got there, and on my way out, she said, never mind, don't come over. And I said, no. I wanted to come over. So I went over anyways. And she does that. She did that twice to me on my way out. She said, never mind. And that's another psychological issue. So that whole time, and I'm trying to speed this up, that whole time that I was there with her, I was seeing all of her psychological issues pop out. She was just down and out. She smoked cigarettes. Boom, that's a big no-no for me as far as choosing a female. But if I really like her, I'll excuse that, and I'm okay with it. But she drinks heavily. She was an alcoholic. She admitted that. And I was okay dealing with that, because I knew at one point I wanted to help develop her to get to a higher level. And again, remember I mentioned that early on that was my goal, and I really saw something special in her. So I stuck with her because I wanted to develop her to a higher level, because she never had anybody like that in her life that would stick with her and say, look, I'm in it for the long haul. And I said, I want to be that person for her, because she suffered a lot of abandonment, and I didn't want to be that person to do that to her. But then she was just giving me all of this negative energy. She was being so disrespectful. And then at first, when I sat down, she was being disrespectful the first 15 to 20 minutes. And I was like, no, that's not you. That's just your psychological issues. That's just you being in an angry state. So I let that slide. So then an hour went by. She still wasn't trying to get close to me and wasn't trying to get into a better mood at all. So then another hour went by, and I was sitting there. I realized, like, okay, look, she's literally not trying to get over her bad mood. She's sitting here listening to all of these low vibrating, sad love songs. She didn't choose not one song that was uplifting to get her out of her bad mood. I was like, all right, man, I'm not about to take this any longer. I deserve much more than this. I am worthy. And she's not trying to let me know what's really going on. Overall, even while being in a bad mood, she still didn't communicate to me her situation, in which if she was mature, she would have communicated to me what went on without her day, if it was information that she was okay with explaining to me. But explained that to me and found a way to get over her mood so that we could have a good night together and really have a good night together and move forward. But she was just completely too disrespectful. And I was like, this is it. All right, I see what's going on with her. So I got to just give her space and just leave her alone for the time being until she gets her stuff together. And that's exactly what I did. So I left her alone and moved forward. So I learned a lot about that situation. And that's the reason why I wrote my newest article, Psychological Issues, They Disrupt Relationships. I said something like that. It's titled something like that. That's the most recent blog article as of now. So go and check that out. And I go through the effects of psychological issues and how they disrupt relationships. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And I'll see, maybe I'll add something on to this for right now, but I'm going to close this out. And hopefully you learned a lot. All right, till next time.